I'm back. Ha ha ha. Okay. I'm just going to wait for you guys to join and then we'll continue that acne discussion. So Cassie's question was, no matter what she does, her acne continues to persist. And usually what I recommend with acne, the first thing I recommend is trying to, and I should say before we dive into the acne question, if I did not get to your question, it's not because I ignored it, it's because I didn't see it. So please ask it again. I would love if you would ask your question again because I would love to get to it. But when it comes to acne and acne that persists, it is a good idea to first try to pinpoint. I know a lot of times when you struggle with acne, you're just like, I have acne. And it's like, I know you have acne, but I want you to start to pay attention cyclically, or even if you don't have a cycle, if there's ebbs and flows to where your acne breaks out. So skin mapping is definitely on point. You always want to use a skin map. So Google skin mapping and start paying attention. So if the forehead is the problem, that's going to be gut related. If it's the chin and the neck and like kind of like the lower cheeks, that's always going to be like liver and hormones. If it's like the cheeks, it's going to be like small intestinal. So you kind of want to pay attention to where it is at and when it's getting the worst. And that's going to tell you a lot about what's driving it. But oftentimes it is liver and gut. So we have poor detoxification. We have a lot of fat stored up in our tissues that are maybe causing inflammation. We have iron issues. And so I would love to throw a million supplements at you guys, but really the first goal is to make sure you're eating frequently. You're keeping your blood sugar balanced with some protein, carb, and fat every 3 hours. And you're eating a lot of protein. You're making sure you're getting 100 grams a day, and you're getting at least 100 grams of carbs a day, but that's like really low. I usually recommend like 150 to 250 if you can tolerate them. Or we give you a different macronutrient breakdown. But you want to make sure you're getting plenty of protein and plenty of carbohydrates, and you're balancing that throughout the day, every 3 hours to keep that blood sugar balanced. And then you want to make sure you're detoxifying efficiently. So are you supporting detox in any ways? Are you eating your raw carrot salad every day? Is your gut health really good? If not, making sure you're doing like a spore-based probiotic like Just Thrive. Making sure you have plenty of vitamin K rich foods, so like a high quality aged Parmesan cheese or goat cheese. If you don't do that, then maybe taking a vitamin K2 supplement is a good idea. You want to make sure you're getting enough magnesium. So a skin spray is a good place to start, but magnesium bicarbonate, which you guys can find the recipe back in my feed, is also a really good support. So really it's about making sure, first of all, you're keeping blood sugar balance, you're getting enough sleep, but then you need to support the implement the nutrients that support detoxification optimally. Things like vitamin E, Shilajit, vitamin K2, a spore-based probiotic, the raw carrot salad, and magnesium. Those are all going to be so beneficial for just overall detoxification and overall health, because I don't like to just be like, we should supplement for acne. We're supplementing for overall health. If stuff's coming out of the skin, then that's a sign that there's junk's not getting out as efficiently as it should. And so we're focusing on overall health, and it just happens to help with what's going on with the skin. Do cold showers and cryotherapy, infrared sauna release free fatty acids into the bloodstream too because they're stressful? It is possible. It's always about context. So if someone is in very, very good health, they can handle a lot more of that than someone who is under a lot more stress. People that don't eat enough or do tons of cardio or maybe are in a stressful life situation, those are definitely going to cause more problems. But that's partially why cryotherapy is so anti-inflammatory. It's releasing a ton of cortisol and adrenaline, which gives you like a limited amount of anti-inflammatory effect. You're like, oh, like my joints move better, I feel really good, like I feel really like energized, and I'm like, well, that's adrenaline. So but it really depends. Your ability to tolerate heat is very much dependent on your thyroid function and your metabolism. And so sometimes people in a very low metabolic state can't handle too much sauna time, I should say. Too much sauna. It's like sauna is not a verb. Any thoughts on high liver enzymes causes maybe? It can be a lot of things. It can be just poor protein intake, poor fats, eating too many plant fats, not enough high quality saturated fats, not balancing your blood sugars, so just not eating protein, carb, and fat every 3 hours, low magnesium, lack of B vitamins. It can be so many things. So what I would say now is speculation. But yeah, usually high liver enzymes are going to be the liver's struggling and needs support. A lot of times when I eat, I get a runny nose, not just with spicy food. Is that considered a histamine issue? It's possible, yeah. Like reacting to your food and getting kind of like a sinusy response shows that there's possibly pathogens that live throughout your digestive tract up into your sinuses. So that is possible. But yeah, it can be a histamine response, especially if you're getting that reaction when you eat specifically histamine foods. Are nail moons a valid indicator of health? I have small moons on my thumbs and no moons on the rest of my fingers. I don't know. I mean, I don't really have moons. I only have moons on my thumbs. But I wouldn't say like, oh my gosh, my health is amazing. But I don't think that that's like the only indicator. I think tongue health is probably a better indicator. But overall, just health in general, how you're feeling, your symptoms. I usually, if you scroll back in my post, you'll find a post that says healthy woman. And it gives you all these little tips for how you evaluate health as a woman. And it's going to be good temps, good temperatures that are above 97.8 and above, good pulses between 75 and 85, really restful and restorative sleep, lots of energy throughout the day, good libido, regular cycles, regular ovulation, and healthy bowel movements. So having a bowel movement at least once a day that's very satisfying and full, up to 3 times a day without having to excessively eat a bunch of fiber and things like that. So overall, a healthy woman is one that is healthy in all sense of the word. I wouldn't say like, oh, you've got moons, you're in tip-top shape, or like, oh, your labs are normal, you go. It's, do you feel healthy, and are you optimally functioning, and is that is it allowing you to live the life you want to live on a daily basis? How do you make the gummies you recommend in Last Live? Good if sensitive to collagen. Yeah, they tend to be okay. You just take grass-fed gelatin powder. So I usually use just Great Lakes. It's the red can. And you mix it in a saucepan with I usually just use grape juice, because it's so easy. It's really sweet. I don't have to even add anything like sugar or honey to it. And I literally just put it grape juice and gelatin, saucepan, warm it up, simmer it for a second, turn it off, pour it into, I'm so lazy, I don't even use molds. I just pour it into a glass baking dish, let it set, and then cut it into squares and eat my little Jell-O squares. Like I'm 90 years old and Jell-O is the highlight of my existence. What's your opinion on apple cider vinegar, gummies for gut issues, Crohn's? It can be really supportive. I usually recommend doing it diluted, so not supplements of apple cider vinegar. It's not the same. The enzymes and all of the really beneficial strains of yeast in the apple cider vinegar are partially the benefit. And so you need to use fresh apple cider vinegar. And the way that I usually recommend taking it is taking a shot glass, filling half of it with apple cider vinegar and half of it diluted with water, and shooting it down before a meal. So that's I like apple cider vinegar. I think it's incredible. It can be really beneficial, especially if it's organic, just because it's so much more diverse when it comes to the strains of bacteria. But I don't think it's necessary for gut health. There are other things we can do for gut health for sure. But apple cider vinegar can be a really good support. Is eating muscle meats 3 times daily too much? I know we're told to fear the highly inflammatory aminos in them. I eat dairy, bone broth, and collagen too. I think it's just in context. It's not about fear. Nutrition should never be about fear. It's not about fearing anything. It's about optimally supporting your body's function. It's not about oh my God, what do I eat? It's does this work well for my body? Am I seeing optimal temps and pulses? Am I sleeping really well? Am I seeing really good recovery time? Or is my stress really high? Am I having a harder time building muscle? Am I not recovering as well from a workout? It's always from a point of I collect data because I want to be empowered and I want to be able to utilize it. If I have no idea what my habits are and I have no idea, I'm just oh my God, so-and-so told me to not do this, so I'm not doing this. Who cares? Who literally cares? It's about how your body's responding to those habits. And if it's not responding as well as it could, shifting those habits. I don't think it's a good idea to be afraid of the muscle meats, but if you excessively eat a ton of muscle meats, especially poultry, that is usually a problem. But if you're eating lots of ruminant animals, bison, grass-fed beef, venison, things like that, lamb, those are going to be so much more of a nutrient powerhouse, and you won't have to eat as much to get the same benefit as if you were eating tons of lower quality animals like poultry. So it's always looking at it in context of your own body, how you're responding to it, and actually like what you're eating, because just saying muscle meats are inflammatory, well, false. Like, let's start looking deeper in context of how you're eating them. You're eating lots of dairy and bone broth and collagen. Excellent. Okay, you're balancing out those muscle meats. What types of muscle meats are you eating? Are you eating tons of the cheap chicken? Okay, that's going to be a problem. But if you're eating lots of ruminants, you're probably going to be in a better place. So it's always in context. It's never about fear. It's not about it's not like technically muscle meats are inflammatory. They're inflammatory if you're only eating muscle meats, and that's only the meats that you're getting. Dairy beneficial even if it's not raw, but still organic, pasture raised, non-homogenized, quality dairy, but it's not raw. Again, context. How is your body doing on it? You get bloated? Do you get headaches? Do you feel like it just makes you kind of gassy and kind of like heavy? Then probably not. But if you feel really good on it, feels like it's nourishing you, your body's doing really, really well, you have lots of energy, you have good temps and pulses, always going by temps and pulses, your cycles are awesome, then yeah, it's probably great for you. I would say most likely it's probably works pretty well. 100 grams of protein seems like a lot and hard to achieve in one day. Can you give a rough example of what 100 grams of protein looks like? That looks for me, when I wake up, I have 3 eggs and a good amount of potatoes, like a good cup. And then I'll usually have a coffee after I eat. And it's going to have at least 1 tablespoon of collagen in it. So there you go. Like 1 tablespoon of collagen is 5.5 grams. We got eggs, which is about 8 grams of protein each. So, or they're not about 8. They're about like 6 to 8, depending on the size, maybe even 5. So I'll just like be conservative, say like 18 grams. Sorry, I have my notepad right here. So 18 grams in the eggs. I got about 5.5 in the collagen. So my breakfast meal looks like about 23 and a half grams of protein, which is what I like to aim for, about 20 to 25 grams for a meal. And then sometimes I'll add like Parmesan cheese to my eggs, which will bump my protein a little bit up, or I'll have like maybe a sausage or something with my eggs, or like a piece of bacon or turkey bacon, and that will even push me higher. And then like mid-morning, I'm going to do a raw carrot salad with either like some cheese, ricotta cheese, cottage cheese, or I'm going to have like a cup of bone broth. And that will give me like a good 5 to 10 grams of protein. So there, I'm at 35 by my lunchtime. And then at lunch, I'm usually going to have like shrimp or scallops, or I'm going to do, what else do I do? I'll do like some type of grass-fed beef, like skillet, maybe like stuffed peppers, some type of protein that's going to hit me to 25 grams. So I'm going to usually aim for 20 to 25 grams of protein at lunch, and that puts me at 60 grams just by lunch. And then mid-afternoon, I'm going to have a snack that has 2 tablespoons of collagen in it. So that's going to give me 11 grams. And it's also going to be, there's going to be some type of milk involved. So I'm going to do I usually do like a milky coffee. So at least a cup of milk and then like a cup of coffee for like my drink. And so a cup of milk is going to provide me around like 8 grams of protein. And then I have 2 tablespoons of collagen in my coffee. And that's going to push me, to, sorry, I'm doing math in my head, 19 grams of protein almost. If I snack on gelatin gummies throughout the day, which I often will like have like a couple bites of Jell-O just when I'm like working, because I'm like talking on the phone, so I'm just like Jell-O. So if you're my client, you just know I'm like chugging Jell-O all day. And so that will kind of add up to maybe like 5 or 10 extra grams throughout the day. But really by dinner, so even if I didn't do Jell-O throughout the day, I'm at 79 grams before dinner. And then dinner just has to be like 20-ish grams. And I'm clearing 99. And then if my afternoons or my like bedtime snack has some protein in it, it's usually going to consist of some type of glass of milk with some type of snack, like some fudge or some B vitamin cookies. I'm like towards 108 or 107. So overall, you have to have a source of protein at every meal to get that much protein, but it is absolutely doable. And if you mix eggs and dairy and bone broth and collagen and gelatin and some muscle meats, you can absolutely get to 80 to 100 grams. It does take some practice though. 3-year-old has awful eczema on her legs. I have done nutritional response testing and the only thing coming up is rice. Any suggestions to get rid of her eczema? When it comes to, I don't specialize in children. So honestly, I am not as schooled in what's safe for children versus adults. So I want you to make sure everything that I say, you definitely research, but, maybe a small amount of chlorophyll. Liver support is definitely important for eczema, as is just supporting detox overall, things like magnesium and B vitamins. Grass-fed beef liver benefits children as much as it benefits us. So does magnesium, making sure they're getting enough magnesium. Things like chlorophyll I think are safe. Please double check that, but things like gelatin gummies, the raw carrot salad would benefit her as well. So, just things that I talk about here that are more food-based would probably be very powerful for her, because her eczema is sluggish detoxification, just like an adult's eczema would be. Can I sub a smoothie for breakfast? I often wake up with a little appetite. If you guys are waking up with little appetite, you need better blood sugar balance, better nutrition throughout the day, because that's usually stress hormones. But yeah, a smoothie for breakfast can work really well. You just need to make sure your temps and pulses are supporting that. So some people cannot do a smoothie for their waking meal. They need some type of meal that they have to chew, swallow. There's a solid meal involved, and then smoothie can be a mid-morning snack. So it just depends on the person. I personally found out that I used to do smoothies for breakfast all the time, and I realized that I cannot do a smoothie for breakfast if I want to have a good day of metabolic function. I tend to get a very lower temps in the afternoon if I do a smoothie upon waking. But what I do find is when I do a smoothie after breakfast, I usually will add collagen and a clean casein protein. I do really well for a mid-morning snack or after a workout, because my body's easily absorbing those nutrients and my blood sugar has kind of already been set up for the day by my breakfast meal. So that's kind of my 2 cents, but everyone's very different. Some people can do a breakfast smoothie, no problem. But a lot of people just say I have low appetite, and then they drink coffee right when they wake up. And I'm that's literally why you have a low appetite the following day. You're starting your day with stress, and so that rolls over, and the next day starts with stress, and so on and so forth. Do you think just Thrive spore-based probiotic is necessary, or is there a way to have good gut health without it? Yeah, there's a way to have good gut health without taking anything. You just have to make sure that you're really nourishing yourself with the proper prebiotics, because bacteria is always going to grow, but what you feed it is going to determine what bacteria grow and how much. So yeah, you don't need a spore-based probiotic to be healthy, unless it's times of where gut health is not optimal. I personally don't take it all the time. I take it in 3-month increments, or 2-month increments. So I'll do 60 to 90 days, and then not take it for a couple months, and then I should take a probiotic again. So I take it for 60 to 90 days again. I don't think we should take the same probiotic all the time, every day, unless we're actively trying to work on gut health, because we end up getting pretty sensitized to those, and then I find that they kind of lose their potency a little bit. You said before a snack you love is Parmesan cheese and honeycomb. Where did you get honeycomb? I found it at my local farmer's market. They sell honeycomb, but I know I've seen it at the health food store as well. I just prefer to support local farmers when I can, because I want them to stick around. So I got mine at the farmer's market, but you can also get it at usually health food stores will have it. Dealing with seborrheic dermatitis and rosacea, could hormones be a factor, and any thoughts on what to do? Yeah, it's absolutely could be a factor. What to do is would require me to really talk for a long time, but it's really about supporting detoxification, supporting gut health, starting with balancing blood sugar, which is always the root. We always got to keep that blood sugar balance and have protein and carbs every 3 hours. I don't know what your case, I don't know much about you. I don't know what you are eating. I don't know what your day in the life looks like. And so I couldn't say this needs to change, but some good support is going to be magnesium, raw carrot salad, detox lemonade with chlorophyll and cranberry. cranberries in general and wild blueberries. You can get some good frozen wild blueberries at Trader Joe's for a very good price. But cranberries also can be very supportive at keeping bacteria at bay. So those are kind of the things that I would start with. But yeah, it really depends on where you're coming from and what your history is to determine really what would help you out. Hi Jess, my mom is going through menopause and experiencing hot flashes. Any recommendations or something that could help? Supplements? Sometimes some gelatinized maca really helps women who are going through menopause, but progesterone is always queen when it comes to menopause. So progesterone supplementation is usually, it helped my mom, or my mom's going through, or not really going through, she's like kind of in that stage. So progesterone really does tend to help women going through menopause for the most part, but a lot of women like the gelatinized maca powder or like feminescence maca. Trying to think of what else. Sometimes like black cohosh, like they like the black cohosh or Vitex berry, but making sure that your habits are king is really important. So making sure you're getting enough magnesium, making sure you're keeping blood sugar balance. Everything that I talk about here applies to a woman going through menopause too. It's just that her ovaries are not making as much progesterone, or you're not ovulating as regularly. You're either having like periods that are farther apart or closer together, and so ovulation's kind of sporadic and you're not making as much progesterone. So it's just kind of one of those things, as when you're going through menopause, you want to be hyper focused on progesterone. Do you meditate? How do you deal with emotional stress? I don't meditate. I'm not like a meditator, and I'm like, people are like, oh, I should meditate. And I'm like, not my thing. And there's actually a lot of like studies that show that it can like put you into psychosis. Like it's not as healthy as everyone says it is. So I personally I love to do things that are gonna like stimulate a different side of my brain. So I'm more like logical. I'm more very much like focused on problem solving all the time, right? Like I'm just constantly focusing on like creating protocols and figuring out information and research. And so for me, things that are gonna like kind of spur creativity and really force me to kind of distract myself and focus on small, simple tasks are very important. So I really like coloring. I do like a lot of adult coloring books, which is just like for me so powerfully, it's like way better than meditation for me. I like to like draw, like I constantly have a doodle pad near me because I'm constantly doodling. Like if I am just like doing something else, I will like over the course of the day, I'll have a pad that's completely covered in doodles by the end of the day. Like I just doodle constantly, just kind of like weird little doodles, and it's really interesting. I do something called morning pages. So I learned this a few years ago. It's Morning Pages by Julia Cameron, and what it is you take a journal or like just a notebook, and you literally just right when you wake up, you set your timer for 10 minutes and you just dump whatever's in your mind. Like you just start writing, just write for 10 minutes, and then once the timer's done, you're done. And it's usually like unintelligible. Like you can't even really, like it's just a bunch of trains of thought that are just all over paper. Like you don't really overthink it, you just write and write and write. Whatever's on your mind, you're just dumping everything onto a page. There's no rhyme to your reason, but that really helps me like really get clear for the day. Everything that's kind of like bouncing around in my mind all night and in the morning is just now like I feel like I just like vomited, and now I'm like we're good for the whole day. Like my brain is clear. So I like to do morning pages. I like to do adult coloring books. I like to make these little, it's so funny, but like I'll go to the craft store and I'll get like it's like kind of like jewelry or like the really thick yarn or thread. It's not yarn and it's not like thread that you would put on a sewing machine. It's like in between. I think it's for like embroidery stitching or something. I don't know. It comes in like this little like figure eight loopholes, and there's lots of pretty colors, and I like to braid them into bracelets or like anklets and stuff. You always find me wearing like a couple of anklets or a couple of bracelets that I have just braided together, and it's just fun. Like it's just another thing that's like kind of crafty. But I just do things that are gonna kind of like make me feel creative, make me feel like they're meaningless. You know, anything that's meaningless usually has the most meaning and is the most de-stressing. I do want to get into painting. I like haven't done that yet because I feel like it's going to be like messy and a whole thing, but I would really like to start to like paint. I think that sounds just really, really enjoyable. But yeah, I just do things that I like. Like for me, emotional stress for me is like people are just like, I don't have time. Like I'm so busy. I don't have time for anything. Like I don't do anything fun. And I'm like, I literally, when I feel that way, I drop everything and I go take myself out to coffee for an hour. Like literally, I'm like, if I'm too busy to like take a moment, like there's something wrong, so for me it's just like we have time for what we make time for, and no one has time to, or no one is too busy to not do something that they love to do for 20 or 30 minutes, you can always color for 30 minutes once the kids go to bed, or you can always color for 30 minutes. So it's just kind of one of those things where to relieve emotional stress, I do what I like to do. Like anything that sounds fun to me, I go do it. Like I want to do it. Like on Tuesday, I'm like, there's this rock climbing gym near us, and they have like ladies night, and I'm like, that sounds fun. I'm going to go try that out. Like I'm always just like, I have things to look forward to, little tiny things. It's not like a big thing like, oh, I made myself a nail appointment 3 weeks from now and I put it in my schedule. And so like, yeah, I don't have time for it now, but when it comes up, I'm going to be like, past Jessica looking out for future Jessica. Just little things that I can do to kind of like look forward to and break up my day and make me feel a lot less stressed. Can the raw carrot salad give you stomach bloating? It's so big it almost hurts. Your thoughts? Yeah. If it's giving you really big bloat, then it's shifting the microbiome a lot, killing a lot of bacteria. I would start with like a quarter of the raw carrot salad and work up. For fatty liver, enzymes are now in good range, but how can I keep supporting my liver? I would keep doing what you were doing to get those liver enzymes down. Vitamin E can help, magnesium, focusing on minerals, keeping blood sugar balanced, like just the basics are very liver supportive. For me, magnesium oil applied on my liver is usually the thing that I notice making a big difference. I think liver pills cause me to smell kind of like garlic. This is Herx. Would it go away after a while? Did it for 2 weeks and 2 pills a day. Thanks. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely can make, whenever we implement minerals or B vitamins, or we're supporting the liver and we're opening up detox pathways and we're making our detox way more efficient, we do tend to move things. And sometimes that could equal way more BO. When I first implemented Shilajit, oh my gosh, like the amount of stink that came out of my armpits, I was just like, oh my gosh, like, oh my gosh. And I had that experience with bentonite clay. I'd had that experience with chlorophyll. Like I'd had those detox experiences, but like Shilajit was a whole nother level of stink. So yeah, that definitely is normal, and it usually balances out once that stuff is gone. Like you don't want that junk inside you, like get it out. Even if it stinks, who cares? Fan of nitrate-free uncured bacon, or is one to avoid along with excess turkey chicken? I think it's just kind of like, I wouldn't have it every single day. And when it comes to bacon, it's really dependent upon what the pig is eating, because pigs can eat a wide range of foods, and whatever they're eating is going to be in their fat. So if they're eating tons of like grains and corn and stuff like that, their fat is going to be primarily PUFAs, primarily these not good PUFAs, either like nasty PUFAs. And so at that point, like I would keep bacon as like a Sunday fun day type thing. But if you're doing really high quality bacon from pigs that were treated well, that ate really well, I don't see it to be as much of a problem. But personally, I well cook my bacon, make sure it's as much fat out of it as possible, and then I like make sure to pat it down with paper towels, because I'm not about that nasty fat life. But yeah, I will have bacon from time to time. Like I don't think I'm not like, oh, I'm such a fan of it. And I know it's like super popular for keto right now, but like I wouldn't like eat it every single day. Do you think a pasture-raised, grass-fed, finished goat whey can be a better option than cow whey? I think whey in general tends to be problematic for a lot of people, so I usually recommend either like a combination of whey and casein, or just doing straight up casein. I personally prefer casein. I think it like helps with muscle tone better. You build muscle faster. It's a lot more slow releasing, so it keeps blood sugar balanced. And I like a brand called Naked Casein. Like literally Naked nutrition products on Amazon are really excellent, and I like the Naked Casein. I personally didn't want to buy the big 5-pound jug of it because it was like $100. It's high quality. Like, I know that sounds like a lot, but it would last forever. So I bought their like small little 1 pound or 16 ounce one. Unfortunately, they only had it in an unflavored version, and I've tried their like chocolate one before, and it's so good. So I wish I could have gotten the smaller container with chocolate. So once I'm done with my unflavored casing, I'm gonna go for the big daddy and get the chocolate one. What are your thoughts on colon cleanse? I just don't think, like, I don't understand it. It doesn't really make any sense to me. Like, if your colon, you don't cleanse your colon. That's not how the colon works. The colon is cleansing you. And so, our job is to support that and make our bodies much more efficient at that by focusing on our metabolism and our cellular health, making sure we're getting the right nourishment and the right minerals. We're causing the least amount of irritation to our colon over time, and no periodic cleansing of the colon, whatever that means, is going to really change that. Why is poultry no good? Well, chicken a lot of times is not raised properly anymore. Commercial chicken and turkey, I mean, really, chickens are omnivores. They're meant to kind of forage and eat wild plants and bugs and things like that. And as of now, like, it's very hard to find pastured chickens that are doing that. If you can get your hands on a good source of pastured chickens, then by all means, poultry is excellent. But oftentimes, they're feeding them cheap, corn, soy, whatever they can kind of give them to fatten them up. Conventional chicken is fed arsenic to fatten them up. So, like, heavy metals, and poultry is just a dirty animal. Like, they're already kind of dirty, and if they're like locked in a jail cell, pretty much, they're just defecating all over everything. Like, it's just kind of it's a whole dirty commercial business. So if you can get a lot of pastured chicken, like, that's raised properly, awesome. But usually it's very difficult to find that, and so most poultry is going to be pretty low quality, have low quality fats. What they're eating is translating into their tissues, and then we're consuming that. And so they're very nutrient poor, and they're not getting the nutrients that they need to create healthy meat. I can't find any 100% grass-fed bison in my Whole Foods. Not sure what meat to eat then. I think just do the best you can with what you have. I usually recommend like U.S. Wellness Meats or Butcher Box, or there's like what's it called? Moink. There's Moink. Like, there's a lot of online delivery services that provide you high quality beef. Thrive Market also has a really good high quality meat that's a lot more affordable than a lot of health food stores. Or look for local farmers that will provide you grass-fed meat at a lower cost. So, when you're trying to find high quality food, like, if you're expecting to find the best at the grocery store, you're going to really realize, like, there's not too much to offer, but you can find it if you start to really look and you make it a priority. Like, you can kind of create your own supply chain of high quality animals. What does high gliadin on a GI map mean? Usually high gliadin is, don't quote me on this because I'm not looking at it, but you're reacting to wheat products, or there's a lot of reaction to those wheat products. Gliadin is that it's like an inflammatory protein. I've been working on my health metabolism for a couple of years. Not only I, but my mother have noticed that my hands are extremely warm, almost hot. Even my students have noticed. Stress hormones? It's possible, especially if you feel like overheated a lot or you have an intolerance to the heat. That is possible. It's better to be hot than cold, but you don't want to be like so hot where you're just running off of stress hormones. So the best way to do that would be to track temps and pulses and see what your waking temperature and pulse is, what your after breakfast temperature and pulse is, and then what your afternoon temp and pulse is, and see how that is looking in context of one another. Why are my fingertips red all the time and sensitive to cold? I don't know. I would have to know more about you. I have no idea, but some guesses would be like, that even sounds like, I don't know, do you have Raynaud's? Like, are they purple? It can be, I don't know, I would guess like stress issues, like if your hands and feet are always cold, ears, tip of nose is cold, circulation is maybe poor. Those would be kind of my guesses or my speculation, but I'm not sure. Can you make bone broth from saved bones frozen from an already eaten meat? Like if I eat chicken, then save the bones in the freezer. How do you do it? If so, thanks. Yeah, that's what I usually do. Like if I make like a pastured chicken, I'll take the carcass and put it back in the crock pot and put water in there. I usually just will quickly break up some like carrots, some celery, throw in some like onion, garlic, and then a couple splashes of apple cider vinegar. You always want to add the acid, the vinegar, so that it pulls the nutrients out of the bones. But yeah, I just do it really quickly. I'm not like all about that, like, oh my gosh, I'm like making a witch's brew. Like I'm just gonna quickly throw in like vegetable scraps. Sometimes I'll actually save vegetable scraps in the freezer, stuff that like I maybe is too old to use but is still technically good, like the celery that's gotten really rubbery or something like that. And I'll just throw all that in there and then let it simmer for like 12 to 24 hours. Please share the B vitamin cookie recipe. It's in Fully Nourished and it's actually on my feed, so make sure you scroll back a little bit. I know this is, again, probably an individual situation, but I've been told you want to aim for at least 30 grams of protein at each meal to stimulate protein synthesis. Stimulating at each meal important. Also know that many say you shouldn't eat at the same foods, especially protein every day, or you can develop a food allergy to it, but I love eggs and love to eat them daily. I just don't understand, like, people like 1,000 years ago didn't have like a huge variety of foods. They literally ate the same foods their whole life forever. That's like the nature of nature. So that's a stupid, I don't understand like why you would develop an allergy to food unless the protein that you're eating is eating something really disgusting that you're developing an allergy to. Like you're developing an allergy to what's in their tissues and not them themselves. And then when it comes to protein, I'm not about rules like 30 grams of protein for protein synthesis. I don't think it's going to matter between 25 and 30 grams. Oftentimes women are eating way too much protein in relationship to carbohydrates. You usually want a 2-to-1 ratio in regards to carbs to protein. So if you're an active woman or you are eating 30 grams of protein, you need about 60 grams of carbs at that meal, or that protein is going to secrete so much insulin, your blood sugar levels are going to drop so fast that you're going to now have to raise blood sugar using cortisol and adrenaline. So protein and carb needs to be looked at in context. If you're going to start getting all up in those rules and up in those businesses, you need to be really aware of the consequences of that. Eating 30 grams of protein is fine, but I would say I would never eat less than, if I was going to eat 30 grams of protein, I would never eat less than 60 grams of carbs with 30 grams of protein. Or that protein's just going to spike my insulin levels and my blood sugar is going to drop rapidly and I'm going to feel hungry. I'm going to feel grumpy, kind of irritable. Like I'm not going to feel my best if I was eating that much protein without eating enough carbs. My daughter just got diagnosed with EDS. Any suggestions? EDS, I'm not really sure what that is. My doctor recommended a 16-hour intermittent fasting, and I wondered what your thoughts are on that. I tried it and seemed to gain weight. P.S. I did try and make sure I still ate enough through the day. Yeah, I'm not a big fan for women. A lot of times doctors will recommend it, and they just don't understand women's bodies. Women tend to gain weight under stress. When there's famine, their body tends to want to store everything that they're eating. So if you go, for example, you're in a famine for a period of time and then you go to eat food, your body's like, I'm going to burn the least amount of this as possible and I'm going to push everything else into storage for later because I don't know when I'm going to be in a famine again. So I hope that makes sense, but I don't really recommend intermittent fasting for women. I think small balanced meals throughout the day, every 3 hours, and not going more than 10 hours without eating from your nighttime snack to your breakfast in the morning is a better option. Just keeping that blood sugar balance is usually the thing that will help you. Oh, sorry, Samson is so he gets so triggered at night. He hears every little sound and it's just let's attack nothing. Do you have a casein recommendation? Yeah, the naked casein on Amazon is my favorite. What biff the sea? I'm not really sure what that means. You mentioned tongue health. Mine has a kraken from the middle and it's sensitive to hot foods. Will get burn marks easily. Does that mean anything to you? It could mean inflammation. Usually the crack has to do with stomach acid and the ability to digest things well. So as digestive capacity increases, usually the crack goes away. Will you discuss why avoiding fermented foods can be beneficial? Yeah, because fermented foods, unless you're making them yourself, you really have, and even if you are making them yourself, you have no control over what strains of bacteria are in your fermented foods. How do you know what they're using to ferment? How do you know what vats they're putting them in? Are they putting them in plastic vats and adding bacteria to ferment things, or are they allowing them to ferment traditionally? So personally, I don't think like eating excessive amounts of fermented foods is a good idea. Here and there is fine, but they can be high in histamines. And then let's say your digestive tract's moving really slow. So people that have lots of stress hormones and low thyroid function have very slow transit time. So just picture, we're gonna picture the bolus of food going through your digestive tract. So when you eat something, it goes down your esophagus and into your stomach, right? Your stomach's like this pulverizer. It's just like, it's very powerful. It crushes things like, think of like a rock crusher. It's just crushing things up, turning them into liquid chyme, right? And then once it's all liquid and broken up, if your digestive capacity is good, it's going to drop into that top small intestine, which is, I think, the duodenum. And then in the duodenum, your pancreas is going to secrete digestive enzymes. Your gallbladder is going to secrete bile, which is going to help you break down the fat. So we got digestive enzymes for fats, protein, carbs. We've got bile mostly for fats and secreting all of those old used hormones from the liver into that kind of like nasty food ball. And then it's going to start moving through the small intestine where you have all these little finger-like projections picking up all the nutrients that they need and absorbing them into the bloodstream. But if that is happening very slowly, or your stomach acid is not powerful enough to turn that stuff into pretty much liquid before it gets into the duodenum, you've got all of this half-digested, nasty food with all this bacteria just starting to like take up residence in your small intestine, where, remember, it's supposed to be completely sterile. Completely sterile. We want a sterile environment there. The more sterile, the better. And so we are now introducing high amounts of lactic acid producing in a digestive tract that's not functioning optimally, meaning gallbladder flows poor, digestive enzyme functions poor, hydrochloric acid was really low. And so you have all this like half digested chunks of food slowly moving through with all this bacteria, and it's just rotting and fermenting in a place where that is not supposed to happen. That should be saved for your colon, your large intestine. Your small intestine is 50 feet of just absorbing nutrients. And so if you are constantly doing that and there's constant irritation and your transit time is slow, meaning that food's just moving through slowly, chunks of food, bacteria, it's going to lead to poor digestive health over time. I don't think a little bit of fermented foods here and there is going to be a problem, but if you're constantly consuming fermented foods and you have poor transit time, or even if you don't, you're going to see the long-term effects of introducing bacteria into a place where it doesn't really belong. If your stomach acid is good and can wipe out that bacteria, but if not, we've got live bacteria going into a place where it doesn't belong. And the reason why I say you want that bacteria dead is because dead bacteria feeds the good bacteria in your large intestine. So as long as that dead bacteria makes it all the way through, the bacteria in your large intestine will consume the dead bacteria and it will kind of increase the health of your microbiome. So if that makes sense, that was kind of like a weird explanation, but pretty much fresh foods are always superior to fermented foods. Sorry, what if the coffee has collagen in it and I eat a meal an hour later? It doesn't matter really. That's probably even worse because you always want to start the day with a good meal and you don't want to start the day with coffee unless you have incredible hormones and incredible blood sugar balance and you are relaxing and chilling during your morning. You are not doing anything stressful. You're not thinking about anything stressful. Adding caffeine into your body without proper nourishment or blood sugar support is just going to create a cascade of cortisol, adrenaline, belly fat. That's going to look like maybe magnesium deficiency, poor sleep at night, maybe headaches, maybe bad PMS. I don't know what that's going to look like for you, but it's probably not a good idea long term. Herbs that are generally safe for most and support thyroid or overall health, ashwagandha, pine pollen, There's so many. I mean, there are thousands. But I think it's just a variety is always the best. So a variety of herbs is usually good support. I just recently listened to this podcast with Matt Blackburn and Ben Belty. And Ben Belty was talking about so many different like herbs and mushrooms, like reishi and chaga, which I was like, oh my gosh, that re-inspires me to get into mushrooms again. And then also was talking about a specific tea called firewood tea, which interestingly enough acts a lot like aspirin in the body, or has a lot of aspirin compounds. So I really want to try that tea. But yeah, I mean, there's so many herbs out there that are overall very supportive. I just think it's about a variety, not just sticking to one or another. But yeah, the popular adaptogens like ashwagandha and rhodiola and lemon balm and passion flower, like or holy basil, like all those can be very supportive, especially if the soil that they're grown in is really great. But there's so many, like I love red raspberry leaf and oat straw and nettle, like those are really powerful. So yeah, I mean, there's so many herbs out there. Postpartum acne tips, I would say like maybe pore detoxification, maybe minerals like magnesium. I'm trying to think, like progesterone levels, like how are those? How are your stress levels overall? Like usually postpartum, you're just kind of stressed out, not sleeping a lot. So how's your blood sugar balance? A lot of times new moms are not nourishing themselves very well. They're not keeping blood sugar balance. And then if you're breastfeeding on top of it, it's just very stressful. So those are some things that I can think of off the top of my head. What can help balance my blood sugar besides the carb, protein, fat combo and eating every 3 hours? That would be the thing. I mean, magnesium can be helpful. If your progesterone is low, getting progesterone levels up, helpful. But yeah, I mean, nothing like manually balancing your own blood sugar for keeping blood sugar supported. Which magnesium do you recommend for rubbing on your liver? I personally use LifeFlow magnesium chloride oil. It is, if you're deficient in magnesium though, and you spray that on you, it will feel like a million fire ants are crawling all over your body. So just FYI, I would maybe test a small patch, and if it does make you irritated, then I would mix it with like coconut oil. Tell me your take on infant V. I can't say the word, I'm so sorry. I know it's taboo, but I'm really undecided and wondering about each side of the research. Go through my followers and see who I follow, okay? And do your own research. Unfortunately, I cannot talk about it much because it's such a censored topic that I will get kind of like, punished. I get a slap on the wrist. Sometimes my lives will go down or things like that. So unfortunately, I can't talk about it too much on here, but do your own research, okay? Thoughts on eating in season? Yeah, I mean, it's always a good idea to eat in season. Like, why would you want to eat, like, an unripe piece of fruit anyways? Like, it's so disgusting. It's not nutrient dense. Like, it's not grown at the right time. Like, of course we should be eating in season. Like, don't buy fruit that's not in season. Don't buy things that aren't in season. Like, that's just a good idea. So you don't eat poultry? Does that just leave beef, bison, goat, fish? I don't not eat poultry. I just don't eat it as much as I do the other things. Like I try not to eat it all the time. It is cheaper, right? So sometimes can be like added in as a supplement, but I'm not like, oh, chicken's so great for me. Like it's a cheap source of protein that's probably not optimal, but I do eat it. I'm not like against it. Tips for Raynaud's. Again, it's like everything that I talk about here. Raynaud's is it's not just one thing that's going on. It's a multitude, but it's usually low metabolism. What do you think about methylene blue? I don't have much thoughts about it because I haven't really like dug into it. It's not something that I'm like, I was going to just like supplement without understanding. And so I haven't personally had any experience with it. I haven't done a ton of research on it. I've just come across a lot of people in the Ray Pete forums and that have seen like a ton of experience, like of amazing experiences with it. But I personally have never tried it, or it's not on the horizon to try. It's something I eventually want to try once I understand it, but I have not tried it. Have you heard of breastfeeding women with PCOS not being able to lose weight despite eating balanced meals because your body being in survival and holding on to adipose fat? It technically is safer for us as breastfeeding women to have a little bit extra stored fat because we don't, our body wants to make breast milk from stored fat rather than like have no breast milk at all. So milk production does rely upon the extra nutrients, and if a body doesn't have any extra fat, it's completely reliant upon the nutrients you put in your mouth. And so yes, it's if a woman pre-pregnancy and her whole life has yo-yo dieted, and now you're breastfeeding a child, you're a milk factory, pretty much, your body is not going to want to let go of fat unless it absolutely has to, because it's been through so many periods of famine. So that, yeah, definitely common, for sure. But it is safer for the body to hold on to fat than have to, or milk supply will lower, especially if the woman's not eating enough. I read you should have gelatin after eating red meat to counteract the inflammatory effects of meat. Is Jell-O a good option for this, or does it have to be bone broth? It's whatever you want. Like, I will do mixtures of bone broth and gelatin. Like, I do both. But yeah, I will do Jell-O a lot of times because it's easy to take a few bites of Jell-O after you eat a steak. The carrot salad never digests for me. Not sure if that's weird. No, it's pretty common. Like, you kind of want the raw carrot fiber going through you and scraping those gut walls and carrying the junk out. If I love peanut butter but staying away from the nut butter because PUFAs, is the Naked Brand's one ingredient peanut butter powder safe to throw in smoothies or yogurt? I think like that's really up to you. If you want to do like a high quality peanut butter once in a while, like I don't think that's gonna like be a problem, especially if you take vitamin E or you get vitamin E regularly. But yeah, peanut butter powder probably is a better option because it's very low fat. So yeah, I never really thought of that, but that is really a very good idea. I'm gonna actually write that down. Thank you for the idea. Because I have a lot of people that love peanut butter. And then they're like, PUFAs. And I'm like, eat it. If you really love it, eat it. Just eat a high quality one that's organic and just peanuts. And don't stress about it. But also, like, don't binge on it, half the jar at 11 p.m. because you don't eat carbs. If having a headache or pain somewhere, is it better to do aspirin than ibuprofen or acetaminophen? In my opinion, yes. And that's what I personally will do. Any fruits we should avoid? I've heard apples and pears can feed lactic acid in the stomach. Again, it's just about season. Like, I think people should eat in-season ripe fruits. And so, I don't think, like, you should necessarily avoid some, but some are going to sit worse than others. Like, the high-fiber ones, like those pears or apples, might be, not sit as well as something like really, really in-season berries or tropical fruits that are in season. So, I think just, again, it's very much in context and, like, what you do well with. But people with pretty good health tend to be able to, do well with a variety of stuff. Unfortunately, I live in NYC, so there's zero fruit in season during winter. What carb sources do you recommend besides honey, maple syrup, squashes, and potatoes? Some good high quality like sprouted grains can also be a good source. So I just ordered wild rice and like a true wild rice, and I was really interested after I listened to the podcast I listened to yesterday where Ben Belty was talking about just the nutrient powerhouse that is wild rice and how good it is for gut health and just it's so nutrient rich. So I actually ordered from his company. It's called Wild something warehouse, Wild Food Warehouse, I think. And I just ordered a bag of his wild rice. So yeah, like some high quality grains, especially in the winter time, are probably going to be easier than finding in-season fruit. And then that's why I always recommend OJ or juices, because those are easy ways to get in some fruit carbs, and they're fairly sweet, fairly in season, whereas it's hard to find fruit, actual physical fruit that's in season. I found a Hershey's Simple 5 non-GMO syrup, sugar, organic invert sugar, syrup, water, cacao, natural vanilla. What do you think of those ingredients? I don't see a problem with it. I'm like wondering about what the natural vanilla is, but other than that, I don't see a problem with it at all. Every morning I use the Torani like caramel syrup in my coffee because it just makes me so happy and I enjoy it immensely. So I think like we always have to weigh like, yeah, maybe the ingredients aren't like the most awesome, but overall the majority of my diet's pretty nutrient dense, so I'm not going to stress about a few things as long as I digest them okay. How many ounces of what's safe or what's a safe amount of X to eat organ meats like liver each week? I think it's kind of up to you. Some people find that if they eat too much liver, they start to get like really dry skin because of the vitamin A. But I think like having like a serving a week is probably a good amount. I wouldn't like do it like multiple times a week unless you're just putting small amounts in your meat. Like sometimes I'll mix mine into ground beef or something. That's what I did last week and it was okay. What do you recommend after having a diarrhea episode to restore the gut bacteria? I don't think like the gut bacteria is the problem. You have trillions, so they're not being like not all of them are being lost. I think more the worry is like electrolytes. So just drinking something like coconut water or trace minerals, or bone broth or some type of mineral rich hydration is more something to think about. Hey Jess, got the flu. Doc is pushing Tamiflu because of my autoimmune. Any thoughts on Tamiflu? My boyfriend took it and it helped him, but it can really hurt the stomach. It's recommended with probiotics. I was doing a bunch of natural methods and kept strong for a week with my boyfriend having it finally got me. I think it's just kind of like a personal decision. I don't have like any against it. I haven't really looked as much into it. I mean, I just saw like the story of another girl that died from it, just because it induced so much vomiting. But I honestly haven't done enough research to give any type of opinion on it. But yeah, I mean, I think that's like really in your gut, like you know what's right to do. What is a good bread that we can buy in the store? I don't see myself ever baking. Yeah, I think you have to get to that point where you realize like all the bread in the store is kind of crap. So for people that can handle a little bit of gluten, like Alvarado Bakery, like their sprouted like barley bread or their sprouted bread can sometimes be okay. Some people do okay with like Ezekiel bread. I personally do like Alvarado better than I like Ezekiel, but whatever you have available to you. If you can do okay with like gluten type grains. If you can't, sorry, my foot keeps slipping. If you can't and you're like have to be gluten free, I like Canyon Bakehouse just because it like tastes pretty much like bread. But it's the ingredients aren't optimal, and for some people it can be really constipating. So I think it just depends on the person, but like a sprouted like barley bread or something like that is not the worst in the world, if you tolerate it well, or like a high quality sourdough. If you can find like a sourdough that's just like flour, water, sour starter, salt, that's good too. Do you think a cup of orange juice jello is an alright thing to eat before working out in the morning? I'm trying to not fast anymore since I now know how bad it is for you. I would just go by your temps and pulses. Personally, like I used to work out fasted for years, literally years, or I'd like work out on like a cup of bulletproof coffee, which just makes me so much cringe. Like I just am like, Jessica. But now I know, like, if I would have been tracking my temps and pulses, I would have seen that was just wrecking me throughout the day, like wrecking me, making me so irritable, making me, my hair loss was really bad during that time. And so now I know, like, oh, duh. So I think it's very much on context. Like some people actually need a very nourishing breakfast before they go slam a workout. But you know how hard you're working out. Like I personally have found like after a while, like I'm actually doing better with a later workout, like a noon workout than I am a morning workout. And I've always been like an early riser, early morning workout person. And I just started realizing like, it's not really working for me. I need 2 good meals in me before I slam the weights. So I think it's just kind of dependent on how your body's responding, what your temps and pulses are like. If your temps are going down like crazy after a workout and your pulses are going down like crazy, or you're getting incredibly high temps and high pulses, that's a sign that the workout's definitely just inducing stress. TMR, sorry, when I eat carrots, I usually have loose stool that's orange. Is that normal or does that signify a problem? No, usually the carrots will pass through you, and that's pretty normal. But the loose stool is not necessarily, but it could be messing with the bacteria balance, and so it can take some time to normalize the digestive tract. Should you always sprout rice? Why is wild rice better? It's wild, multicolored corn, okay? So from what I'm learning, wild rice is better just because of the way it's processed. If it's processed correctly, like it's already pretty much gone through all these processes that have reduced the amount of anti-nutrients. So it doesn't need to be sprouted because it won't even sprout. When it comes to rice, I don't think you need to sprout it. I was just kind of going for wild rice because it's so nutrient dense. Like I've just been kind of educated on it now, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, it's so crazy. It's so much more higher in protein. It has so many more nutrients. And then is wild multicolored corn okay? I don't know if it's okay for you. I think that sounds excellent, especially if it's wild. But wild rice is something that we have been eating for a very long time, as I would assume maybe multicolored corn as well. But I need to look into that a little more. Do you only eat beef liver? I know it has more nutrients, but chicken tastes so much better to me. I actually mix it up. Like sometimes my health food store will only carry one. So a lot of times they have beef liver, but sometimes they have lamb's liver or chicken liver. And so I'll just get whatever they have. But yeah, chicken liver does taste better. It just has a different amount of nutrients than beef liver. Could starting to incorporate collagen powder break me out? Yeah, it could. And sometimes people are intolerant to collagen and need to do gelatin instead. All right, guys, I have time for one more question. What are the best labs to run during pregnancy to get the best picture of overall health? A lot, like a full thyroid panel, progesterone. It would just depend on your situation. Did you like that sourdough bread you ordered? Yeah, I did. It was just really expensive, so I don't know if I'll order it all of the time. All right, I love you guys.